Hello, and thanks for being with us here on the New Life Show, a series of talks with Dr. Michael Leitman. Hello, Dr. Leitman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Talman Delbaum ben Moshe. Hello. Today we'd like to learn from Dr. Leitman how should we correctly relate to expectations and disappointments, how to really have the right outlook on life. Be with us, Tal, please. Yeah, we all have expectations, and it starts from early life. We're expecting to feel mom's warm heart, and many times when we don't get what we need or what we expect, we experience disappointment. And this shapes us and all of our relationships, and it has to do with what we later on expect of our family, our spouse. There are people that stop expecting things altogether. They protect themselves that way. I'm not expecting anything, therefore I won't be disappointed. But maybe that's not the right way to go through life. Maybe we should have some expectations. So today we want to find out, what is that expectation that we're born with? How should we develop it? Or what's the right kind of expectation? What should we expect of life? Of life? Yeah, that need that we're born with, that we expect. We expect pleasure. That's it. My entire expectation of life is to enjoy each and every moment and see more and more options, possibilities, opportunities to enjoy endlessly. Even a small baby that's born, if that baby will not know that there are pleasures ahead, he won't grow. So it's important to have expectations. It's a must. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, expectation is called Or Mekif, the surrounding light, an illumination which we exist in that shines on us and gives us the sense of future. If that illumination does not give us a sense of a good future, it's dim, depressing, I don't grow. I contract to the point that I can die, even without having something happen to me, just due to lack of expectation. That's something very essential, if so. We have to have the so-called Ol Pnimi, inner light for now, and Ol Makif, surrounding light for the future. Because many times in life it doesn't work. We expect, and we're disappointed. Either we're not realistic, a person gets used to any situation and it's impossible for him to live without an expectation. He can't last, he can't hold, maybe a few days, a month, but it's impossible that he has no expectation, something that shines from afar pulling me. Yeah. No matter what, no matter. And besides, our ego is so cunning that we can build for ourselves expectations in the most terminal, finite states, which actually explains our ability to get used to things. Yeah, the fact is that humanity invented the next world for itself and different things. Why? For a person to have such an expectation which you can't contradict. That he can live and expect to have something there, or some kind of a reward at least, if not here, then there, and so on. That's the greatest expectation, the most fictitious, unclear, imaginary, entirely. And look how many manners it has in every nation, every religion, and that keeps people alive, of course. Something very powerful then. So, I want to talk about relationships. In relationships, it's very obvious that we expect of someone to do something because we did something for him, and maybe that's the biggest source of disputes, anger, when someone behaves differently than what I expected of him. I'm really angry at that person. It's worthwhile for you to correct your ego. Mrs. Because if you were not egoistic, but you would have loved the other, then you would have only been doing good things to that person and you would have enjoyed it without asking anything in return. So we don't need to expect anything of anyone. No. What do you expect of a baby? For him to feel good, right? And that's enough for you. Yeah. Meaning because you love the baby, you're doing good things for him and you want him to feel good. And that being enough, to the extent to which you love someone, you give, and for you it's not giving, you're filled up by it, right? Yeah. Why don't you behave that way towards everyone, but only towards your baby? I think that adults have a need for mutuality. No. No. It's all in all lack of love. And what about a child that's expecting to feel love from his parents and he doesn't get it, he is disappointed. There are children that their parents leave them. The reason is the same reason, lack of love. Lack of love from the one, from the other, from both of them, and different expectations for love and disappointments in return. The world's full of it. All in all, our ego pushes us to have expectations and to constantly experience disappointments. So there is something that's not working here. That child whose parent left him, later on he develops a defense mechanism that doesn't allow him to expect anything of anyone. He closes himself, shuts himself emotionally. He has no expectations, so maybe it's not that good. Maybe it is good. Protects you. Protects him. He doesn't feel pain. Why have expectations and then be disappointed? But at the beginning of our talk, you said that a person without expectation dwindles and he can really die from it. And this is what we see today. That people live like grass. So what's better, to have or not to have expectations? It's not about good or bad. I'm explaining about what's happening in nature. I'm not giving my outlook on things here, or my attitude towards what's happening. But I'm simply explaining that this is what's happening with humanity and what's the reason. So a person that doesn't expect anything because he learned very early in life that if you expect, you'll be disappointed. So what happens with his development? Because he doesn't open himself up to people, he doesn't expect any attitude from them. Maybe he benefits from not having any disappointments, depending on the society he lives in. What does he do? Maybe it's not a problem for him. And also, this is the kind of person he is by character. He works, he relaxes, he exercises, does different things, maybe even has a family, but he has no expectations because he learned on his own flesh. And also, this is how things happen in life. And he arranged his life in a way where why expect things and be disappointed? I want to ask about this mechanism. You said that the mechanism of expectation is the most natural thing that's rooted in us, that a person has to have something shining from afar, otherwise he can't develop. Why is nature built this way? What's the purpose of this expectation mechanism rooted in us? Because it exists only in people. It doesn't exist in animals. An animal is cleaved on to the very moment it lives in. A person, he has to know what happens tomorrow and the next day, also depending on the kind of person that is. How developed is that person? There are people in the world that live from one day to the next. There are people in the world that don't feel time. They don't. I met different people in life, not in Israel, in different countries where I traveled, that people, you ask them, where are you going? He's telling you where he's going, but you tell him it's 40 kilometers away. He says, fine, no problem. Meaning he doesn't feel that there is such a long way ahead. Or vice versa, that he has to start doing something, you're asking him, what, do that? It can take you 2 years. He says, okay. He doesn't feel time. It's not that he is stubborn and he has a real need for it, but there are people that look at things very simply, meaning they don't have a feeling of time, distance like we have. So the expectation mechanism, why do we have it? You said animals don't have it and people do, and depending on the extent to which that person is developed, why does that mechanism of expectation exist at all? In order to think about life and to ask and answer the question of what is life? What is it for? What is the meaning of life? And this is actually the goal. But again, I'm saying that there are plenty of people in humanity, I'd say that more than half. I don't want to say what I think, but let's say more than half. That they don't have a feeling of time. Have no feeling of time. This is how they work. This is how they operate. And there are those that do have a sense of time, but they live. They live, that's it. They're approaching death. And there are those that say, no, my expectation, my inner feeling is so targeted at life that I have to find out what am I living for. Without that, I don't want to live this moment either. There's no point. Meaning the end of life is right now. Not that it might happen in 20 years, but I have to know here and now, what am I living for? Because without that, my life is pointless. So, there are these and there are those. Till now, we talked about expectations. I want to talk about disappointments. What is a disappointment? How does that work? Without disappointments, how can you have expectations? Okay, so I expect something, I don't get it. Meaning you were thinking about some kind of a reward. Yeah, I depicted something good in the future, that something's shining from afar, and I found out that it wasn't what I thought it is, and then the expectation turns into disappointment. Meaning you had some place to get pleasure, a good feeling, a nice attitude from some kind of a dish, something, doesn't matter what. And this place maybe got a bit, but not according to what you expected. Right. So the empty part you have left, all of it, or a part of it, is called disappointment. What's the point of the mechanism of disappointment? What is its purpose and creation? To aim you more precisely at the goal. Now, okay, now I want to return to relationships. You gave Tal a very good example, but pay attention that in life, time and time again, we get disappointed. But by it, we teach ourselves, we clear things up, we aim ourselves more and more precisely, more correctly towards a more exalted, more preferable goal, more beneficial goal. Meaning the disappointments are something positive. Why exactly? Because they help me to more correctly aim myself at what's worthwhile. So suppose I wanted a good job, I got it, I feel that it's unsatisfactory, and I'll start thinking what will satisfy me. Yeah. Returning to the example you gave with relationships, after you explained what is the purpose, the role of these two mechanisms of expectation and disappointment, they're pulling us and pushing us all the time. Without that, I'm not a human being. I'm not alive. I'm a dummy. I'm still expectation and disappointment, expectation and disappointment. It's constantly advancing me. It's like a wheel that even though that it's going forward, it also has to go backward. Expectation and disappointment, and this is how I work. And actually, thanks to that, I advance. Hypothetically speaking, could there be a situation where a person's advancing without any expectations or disappointments because disappointments, it's unpleasant? Yes, on condition that he accepts the disappointment as an expectation. What? Meaning that he is above disappointments and expectations. Slowly. He uses the expectations and disappointments as something which advances him towards the goal he wants to achieve. That there is a goal above the expectations and the disappointments. Like I'm sitting on a wheel on top and the wheel's turning and I'm advancing. But when you define the mechanism of expectations, it also defines where am I headed. I'm expecting something. Yes, but in order to reach the goal, you have to change. Look what you have here, how it works in the wisdom of Kabbalah. The only thing that exists in the wisdom of Kabbalah, not existing in any other place. You're constantly advancing towards something in life, you get disappointed, go in a different direction, get disappointed, and so on and so forth. I don't. Why? Because there's a target that I'm locked on. And now I'm headed towards that goal. And every time that I'm headed towards that goal and I get disappointed and I head towards it and get disappointed, these actions of expectation and disappointment, for me, these are actions which constantly aim me in the same direction. And I'm like a wheel. I both go backwards, but along with it I go forwards. And this is how I advance. From what I feel, the example you gave, Tal, about relationships between a mother and her child, and you defined love in a revolutionary way, Tal asked you about 10 minutes ago. In a relationship, there's always me and someone else. I expect something from that person, and usually I get disappointed. You said exactly, that's the problem, because you're egoistic. You don't expect anything from your child, you love him, and your love towards your child fills you up with a good feeling. By giving him. Yes, you said by giving someone. Yeah, the realization of love is giving, and to the extent to which I give, I fill up. Right, and then she as if neutralizes the ability of the other side to disappoint her because she's no longer expecting of the other side, but of herself, her own development. If she doesn't give something to that person, she's really sad and disappointed. Disappointed of herself. Yeah. So there's some kind of an insurance card here that I think is related to that exalted goal you just described. There's something personal of my own. I want to develop inside myself the same attitude, positive and good attitude towards others, by which I nullify the chances of being disappointed by that person. You don't care about that person. You care about your love towards that person. How can you bestow onto that person? How can you give of yourself to that person? And why is it good? Expectation is towards something good. You described it technically beautifully. You said you have some place. What is the expectation mechanism? There's some place that you expect it to fill up like a cup, suppose. And if it doesn't fill up the way you expected it, then that's it. Disappointment. So can you explain this with relation to my attitude towards others? You're not dependent on them at all. If you love them and you bestow onto them, you fill up all the time. And what's good about this fulfillment is that you're never full, but you fill up with pleasure instead of disappointment, and your expectations are always fulfilled, and you are like a mother towards her baby, feeling an ever greater need to benefit others. So you always have the expectation of bestowing onto them and the realization of the expectation, and instead of disappointment, pleasure. You understand this? More or less. And it's all about whether you love others or you don't. You're not dependent on others. A mother isn't dependent on whether the baby loves her or not. The baby doesn't understand what's going on at all. But how can I relate to all the other people around me as my babies? You can. Of course you can. Your attitude towards them can be an attitude that as if you gave birth to them, as if you gave birth to them like to your own babies, and you take care of them, not physically. It sounds like a tremendous burden. What is that all for? It's not a burden. On the contrary, constantly feel yourself fulfilled, abundant, endless pleasures fulfilling you. Does anyone get tired of love? If so, it means that the love is incomplete then. But where do you take the strength from? You have the strength, believe me, limitlessly. For love? Yes. And if people disappoint you, it happens. It means that you don't love them. Because suppose someone promised me something. I'll meet you at a certain time. And he didn't come. It's a fact. How do I cope with it? It's a sign of lack of love. Love can never bring disappointment. Towards your child, you start demanding something of him, and he doesn't keep it, then that's already a problem. What do you mean? I love my children, and unfortunately, sometimes I'm disappointed by them. So what's wrong with my mechanism? Lack of love. So it means that we accept everything they do in a non-judgmental manner. You can say that we don't. In the meantime, we're in our world, and it's impossible to be any other way about it. But the truth is that it's lack of love, because were it utter love, we wouldn't feel any flaw about them whatsoever. Children, it's a bit confusing, because there's also the matter of educating them, so maybe we'll put them aside just a second. A moment ago, you said something, and I want to understand what that is. And not regarding children, because you just said that it's like this, and not exactly, so let's put children aside for just a moment. You said that whoever gets weary of love, it means that their love is incomplete. What do you mean? Previously, when we tried to, how is it possible to get tired of love? So what does that mean? In our corporeal world, which is entirely based on our ego, what happens is that the more we love, the more we ourselves enjoy. It's not that we're delighting someone. And therefore, there's a limit. I get tired of it, I'm fed up with it, and so on, because it all stems from my ego. Or first of all, there's the ego, and then love stems from it. But if I'm talking about a love which is above the ego, that doesn't come from the ego, that's not connected to my ego, suppose I get from above some quality of love. How is it possible that I get it from above? Because I'm not relating to my children, like in Tal's case or in your case, but I'm relating to strangers, where previously either I was completely indifferent towards them or I felt hate towards them, but not love. And if I get from nature, so-called from above, love towards them, this love is not riding on my ego. It's above my ego. And therefore, I never grow tired. and I don't examine them according to my ego, and I can always bestow onto them and always be in that. But here we're going into a subtle kind of turf. And what's the difference between that kind of person and a person who stopped expecting anything from everyone? When he doesn't expect anything from anyone, he disconnects himself. Yeah, everyone is a stranger for him. Yeah, he's locked inside his ego, inside his cage. And here it's the very opposite. He comes out of himself onto others and lives in them. And then he starts feeling the upper world in them, inside of them. As he comes out of himself, he starts feeling the upper world. In that mechanism of love, do I exert myself? In the so-called spiritual love. Yeah, what you just described. Not towards my children, but towards strangers that I felt hatred towards before that. No exertion. On the contrary, I'm inspired. I have calories. I have fuel. Infinitely. Where does that come from? It's the general force of nature. What? Love. Love is the general force of nature. We're the whole of nature because it exists, because it's alive, because it sustains itself, and all of its parts are interconnected, and the electrons rotate, and the body's alive. It all comes from that good force which exists in nature, that if I connect to it, I never get tired, but on the contrary, I start feeling my inner life where I'm connected to that force as an eternal life. And this kind of a person, what expectations does he have? He has no expectations, he lives in it. Expectation is something for the future. He lives in the present, in an infinite world. So expectations and disappointments, disappointments and expectations. In the meantime, let's leave it in our world. Let's rise a bit to the attitude of love towards others, and we will merit a life without expectations and disappointments. Thank you very much, Dr. Lightman. Thank you, Tal. Thanks for being with us. All the best.